Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Going to be talking about cannabis today, cannabis tech, different stages of the cannabis history, and where the world is going today. Joined here by Devin Melnyk, founder of HiNote, currently raising capital on Andy's Capital. I got to tell you, Devin, his partners, Lauren, really some of the most influential people in this industry today. Gonna see what Devin's open to sharing, and gonna talk about everything that's going on in the vertical. Devin, thanks for taking time to join the pod here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm sure it'll be interesting and fun.
Well, I've learned a lot about you and want to be able to familiarize the audience a bit. How did you get involved in this space? Where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, so cannabis has always been, I guess, a part of my life since basically 16 years old. We were, hustling bags back in the day or whatever. And then I had
Sure.
kids at 18 and said to myself, well, how can I feed my family the best I could? And at the time, cannabis, definitely in the gray market, we'll call it, or underground, was very prevalent in British Columbia, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I went that route and made a name for myself, made a career in that side of the industry, and then just pushed forward from there. Got in the legal world back in 2016. We'll probably touch on that a little bit. Or the non-gray market, the legal Canadian market, where we are, or Canada is the only federally legal country completely in the world so far, except for Uruguay. But technically, you have to be a citizen to buy in Uruguay, so it's not recreationally federally legal, I should say. Although most states individually are um, legal as well too.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've invented strains. I want to talk about the product a little bit. It gets generalized in movies and TV, and you see a joint. What type of science is behind a cannabis strain? How does it differ from one user to the next? How does it take an effect at different points in their day or around any of their medical, specificities? Can you talk to us a bit about the product before we talk about large grows and the tech side of things?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know what? With the whole breeding, it is a lot of science and feeling. Definitely because what we use is we use like colloidal silver or silver thiophosphate to basically stop the ethylene flow in the plant, which you can turn a female plant to male. In that process, what we do is I look for, and I guess I got to jump around here, but I look for high THC, of course. That's big in the markets right now, which is unfortunate. And that's kind of part of the reason, we'll talk about that later, that I thought of doing this app or created this app. But yeah, so the breeding is really built upon THC. So I work with a lot of different labs, a lot of different universities. And basically, what you're doing is, you're taking a high THC female and you're looking for traits that you like. So, this one grows a little bit shorter or taller, whatever is good for the environment of the grower that's growing it. And then smells, you're looking for different smells and flavors. And that's kind of in a roundabout way what we're looking for. Like we test the terpene levels, which are the smell, right? Terpenes, like pine trees have terpenes or whatever. Blueberries have terpenes. It's not a cannabis specific
Mm-hmm.
thing, but definitely it's something that we look for in creating a new strain, and those all combine to user effect. Now, I mentioned about the THC levels. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of sad that it's pushing higher and higher THC, and that's where again the app will come in a little bit, but definitely it can affect you differently with the terpene combination, and we call it the entourage effect, where it depends what kind of terpenes it has at what levels and what the THC is at. You can get stoned off an 18% if that's what you're looking for. And on the medical side, we don't touch that too much with what we do in Canada up here, or comment as much. But in general, yes, it's good for medical. Like, I mean, I believe if you're a cancer patient, for example, on those sides, and you're not eating properly or consistently, it's good to do it because it makes you hungry. Like that's a traditional thing with cannabis. You smoke a joint, you go for a little snack and
Right,
sit on
right.
the couch. But yeah, on those regards, yeah, that's definitely some stuff that I believe in. And people with back pain as well too. Even my wife, she's like, takes the drops every once in a while. She's got arthritis, even though She's, not that old, but yeah, it helps her sleep once in a while with the THC. So yeah, there's all those type of things that come from the plant and the breeding. I mean, specifically right now, like I said, I'm breeding for higher THC and smells, because that's where the market is dictating around the world. And again, we'll probably touch around the world later, but that's kind of yeah, the main focus of the breeding side. And yeah, I've been doing it for on and off the whole time, but pretty steady for about 7 years now as well. Like back crossing and trying to stabilize genetics, which is fun, but another kind of task where you take the same female, take two females, flip the one female to male, and then breed them, and then take the seeds and rehunt the female and try to get more consistency. You could almost start from seed again, but again, it's a long process and it's fun, but it's strenuous. So I think that kind of answers that question for the most part. But yeah, in a
Yeah.
nutshell, that's kind of what we do.
You are the scientist. You're flipping from female to male. You're making to have a better impact for different conditions. Anxiety, depression, sleep across the board,
Yep.
PTSD. What about at scale? You know, what magnitude are these grows consisting of? And what are some of the obstacles? What are some of the difficulties? You hear these large numbers as someone who's, reading through the media, big grow operation, but what's really behind it to make that all come to life?
Oh, well, there's a lot. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to see probably grow ops now in 6 to 10 different countries, as well. Portugal is really hot right now, for example. But it depends how you judge it, like square feet or square meters. A really big one up in Canada, they're 1.6 million square feet, or that's what is that, 15 hectares? Depends
Hmm.
on which way you go. Like that's one of the biggest going. That is a greenhouse facility, and I've worked with them, definitely. So they're probably the biggest one in the world right now. But there's ones like Glass House down in California that's pretty close. I've never been to that one, but there's also Copper State out in Arizona. I believe they're 500,000 square feet, things like that. So there's some pretty big ones. Those are more of the you call them more of the commercial, obviously big product like the one that's the big one in Canada. They probably produce close to 150 metric tons a year, if not
Wow.
more, of cannabis. Yeah. And then some of the smaller ones, there's anywhere from micro up in Canada, for example, because that's where again mostly I'm based right now, because of the federal legalization, and some of them are anywhere from 4,000 square feet up to 100,000 square feet of grow space. I was at one in Toronto recently, and then I've been to the country of Lesotho as well too, which is an interesting place. It's that landlocked country by inside of South Africa, and I got to see it grow up there. It was pretty insane. It was up on this mountain. It's in a spot where they built the water dam for Johannesburg. And it
Okay.
was awesome to see like the people there. And it kind of leads to the culture and how cannabis is expanding. Not that that's what you asked for the urging for the question, but yeah, it's insane. Like to see the world expanding like that, and these big ones in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I don't know how many square feet they are, but they're probably 100,000, 50,000 square feet. It's in the middle of nowhere, and their bridge washed out one time, so they had to go to the local chief, and they rented all the donkeys to
Hmm.
donkey the cocoa up over the mountain because they needed more cocoa to grow the plants. I was like, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. But yeah, I love those guys. They're good guys. But yeah, scale wise, they're kind of all over the map. I mean, people tend to say you can get a bit more craft or and I don't even know if I call it craft, but sure. But you can get a little bit more control if your grow is not so substantial. But even the large ones, again, it's amazing to me to see what they have done. Um, and when I first saw one of these big ones, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. And I was standing there in this empty 5 hectare field looking, going like, this is all gonna be weed. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be insane. But it's definitely not. I wouldn't even think it was possible, but it's been again insane to see that. And yeah, I think I answered all your questions there, but maybe
Yeah.
not. But
Yeah, yeah, I've seen some of those drone shots, video, photo of crazy
oh,
locations, and you zoom in, and there's a massive cannabis field in there.
Yeah.
Appreciate you painting the picture on that. What about the legality, especially on an international level? And what does it look like, trade, cross borders? What's important to take into account in terms of legalization and how it's transformed from 10, 20 years back?
Yeah, so it's definitely well, there's it's different across all markets. So I mean, the U.S. will start there. They basically are not federally legal, so they can't ship to any other countries right now. And I'm pretty sure that even they can't cross state lines technically. So if you grow in California, you must sell in California, and if you grow in Washington State, you must grow in Washington State. So, I mean, it's been great for the U.S. market because it was always there and it was never going to go away. And even like compared to alcohol, for example, I've never smoked a joint and went out and got in a fight or whatever. I'm not saying I did that on alcohol either, but definitely the legalization has been good for that. I think that it's come more in the limelight. People don't have to hide it as much or be embarrassed. Again, I'm not even a huge smoker. Obviously, I smoke weed, but I'm not like crazy. Got to smoke 5, 10 joints a day. I mean, I was all about the money as well too, and having fun growing the plant. Um, Now, in saying that, Canada is a different animal, and that's
Yep.
where, um, yeah, we are allowed to basically sell to any country that's medical. So it's kind of interesting because you have to get what's called EU GMP or AC. Oh, I'm going to butcher that. AC whatever. Yeah, trying to think of the acronym. But anyways, you got to get the EU GMP license to be able to ship to places like Germany, and things like that for medical. So basically, we convert our recreational cannabis, but we put it through a different drying process, different handling procedures for harvesting for those markets, and then we're allowed to ship. So, for example, there's companies that have brands in um, like Israel that are branded same as Canada. Germany, not so much. Great Britain, Ukraine's coming, Poland's coming, Australia. Portugal's going to be soon, and Spain as well too. And I'm probably missing one in there as well. But again, yeah, there's different rules, but all those countries are basically medical. And even like South Africa and Lesotho, which have been the grow ups there, like I mentioned,
Yeah.
um, they're they're allowed to grow it, but they're not allowed to sell it yet medically in those countries, for example. And same as Portugal, I was there like 3, 4 months ago. Beautiful place to go. Portugal's sick.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
head back there anytime. It's nice.
I've flown
But
into the Algarve and driven up the coast, Lisbon, Porto. Portugal's
oh
awesome.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're pointing to how it's an ever evolving space because each of these markets are going to go they're going to go legal, they're going to open up more, whether there's different restrictions like grow sell in the same
Yeah,
state, you're still able to bring your practices, your strains, your science all the way
yeah.
through. What about the tech side of things? What inspired you to create HiNote, and what type of feedback are you getting from audiences? Why is this such an important area to focus for the vertical?
So yeah, I mean, basically what happened was, even back in the day, and again, I should talk about at one point here about the founder Lauren, but I'll bump him in the story early. Lauren called me one day and he said, "Let's do something together," and I says, "Okay." I says, "All right." And Lauren's a very interesting guy. We'll get into him later, but basically, even in the underground, what I would do is I did a lot of clones and genetics, right? Which
Okay.
was cool. And my favorite story I always say is, I would go and meet a grower and he'd be like, "Oh, I got 2,000 a pound for that weed. Oh, it was awesome." Be all excited. And I just go, $5 and sell him his clones. And then he'd come back next week. "Oh, my AC broke down. Oh my God. I only got 1,000 a pound." I'm like, that sucks. $5. So I kept my margins pretty steady. But in saying that, what I would do is I would throw in like a couple clones of a different strain, right?
Yeah.
And I would toss it in there and I'd put a little loop tag around and always tell them, "Hey, you know what? Let me know if you like that one because it's something I got coming new." And most of the time it was hilarious. Nobody would ever give you feedback. And then like 6 months later, like, "You know that one that you like gave me 6 months ago?" And I'm like, dude, I got no idea, man, what the hell you're talking about, right? Like, yes, I gave you one, but I've got 25 or 30 different genetics or whatever. I have no idea which one I gave you. Well, you know that one, it was really purple. And I'm like, fuck, man. Well, I guess no, whatever. And I'm like, Tom told me not to swear so much. And anyway, so that involved into the LP world where I was creating strains, doing all these tests. And I made something, just a sheet of paper, really. It was very simple, called the Puff Puff Pass Log. I named it, and just some check boxes and how hungry did it make you, how did it look, just so I could get some feedback. Because even though I created the strain, it was funny because I don't always want to be the one to be like, that's the winner, that's the best for anybody, right? Because everybody does react a bit different with the entourage effect, like I mentioned earlier. And
Of
just
course.
because I like it doesn't mean it is the best. Obviously, I got a pretty good eye and a pretty good idea over the years of what I'm looking for. And sometimes when people vote stuff, I kibosh it. Sometimes 'cause I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know if we should go with that one. But in saying that, yeah, that was kind of the original thing, and then corporate, kind of Health Canada, I guess you'll say, corporate was like, we can't do that. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I kind of shut it down. And then yeah, Lauren one day brought it up, and he goes, let's do something. And I'm like, what should we do? And then I figured, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do this because that'd be pretty cool to be able to give the customer kind of power. So when the fact like you go to a store, and I don't even know if you smoke weed or whatever, it doesn't matter, but you go to a store and you're like, what do I buy? And I found myself doing that too. Like I walked in the store and I'm looking, and I'm in the industry and I'm the one making these things. And I'm like, dude, there's so much in this store. I don't know what to do even, right? So that was kind of the basis to be able to give power back to to the person where they can, kind of have a place where they could keep reviews of what they've tried, a database to what they liked. And then when they go from city to city or town to town or country to country, it's going to help them find something good for them. Because it kind of, I guess I'll touch on the high THC at this point. It's like, maybe you like 22% THC, and this kind of limonene terpene it comes out to be, or whatever. So when you go to Cal or come to BC or Nelson, like you mentioned, we were talking the other day or whatever, to go snowboarding,
Yeah.
then you could go, oh, I don't know what the hell to buy in Canada or whatever, and you scan the bag, and it'll be like, oh, or give you a recommendation before you go in what would work for you best. And that's kind of in a roundabout way the yeah, the reason I thought of it. And I said, you know what? Again, why not? And I've always been a gambler too. And again, being in the underground, you have to be a gambler, right? And trust your gut instinct. And it's been a fun
Sure.
process. And yeah.
And you have a very engaged community. Uh, People obsess over the strains and the experiences that come along with it. It could make or break a trip, at least change the vibe of it. Or, talking about a snowboard trip, but whatever it looks like. So you have a lot of community insights. You have a lot of enthusiasts participating in this beyond, the puff puff pass and the forums. Now it's all digital and high volumes of people contributing on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do. What we want to have, again, the community decide, right? Like,
Mhm.
and not have it rammed down your throat. I mean, the bud tenders are the key to this industry right now, for sure too, because definitely they're the voice, right? And the recommendation, and no knock against bud tenders, I love them, great people, and they obviously are passionate about their product, and we want them to be a big part of the community on the app, but also too, it's like one person's opinion, right? So if you come to buy from me, I'm probably going to steer you towards my favorite brand or my favorite strain per se,
Mm.
right? And that might not be the best for you. And that's where it comes in, where we're gonna be able to recommend stuff live, to the consumer, and that'll give them the power to be able to make better decisions. And even if you're, let's say a bit older, not an enthusiast, but you're like, oh, once a month I smoke a joint, whatever, again, it is pretty overwhelming, and it'd be nice to kind of like, on the app, you can follow people that maybe have similar taste. They'll recommend people to follow, and you can see what they try. At least you got an idea, and maybe the bud tender still talks you out of it into something they want, whatever, right? But at least you can go in there a bit more educated. I'm looking for X, Y, Z brands. What do you have by them? Do you have purple Kush for Z brand, or maybe do you have yellow Kush for X brand, or whatever the case may be? And at least you'll be more educated when you go in the door, and be able to, like, you know, be more confident about your decision would be what we're looking for. That's for sure.
Yeah, wherever you're at, you're able to take that
Yeah.
information based on the insights, based on what the app's telling you, and have an educated discussion with that bud tender. They could probably steer you in the right direction, but there's so much of a question mark with any substance. Even a cup of coffee. How strong is this? Whatever it looks like. Especially
Yeah.
for cannabis, you want to know what you're getting and be able
Yeah.
to be intelligent about it.
Yeah, you can get down a dark road if you smoke something or eat something too strong. It sometimes can be a tough one, but
And as a marketer, that audience is so valuable to me. Meaning, if I'm talking to a brand, I get a understanding of how large their audience is, but then how responsive, how proactive are they? Ambassadors? Are they talking all the time? So the fact that this is around something that people enjoy so much that they get such strong benefits from, perhaps on the medical side, it's very powerful towards being able to promote a strain. Any business, anything. I mean, the power of community is a big deal.
yeah, yeah, and and that's the thing even too. Like we can even talk a bit about here, even like the LPs. An LP, we call them in Canada as a licensed producer, which is basically your grower, who makes who has a brand, right? So licensed producer, they'll have a brand out there and they'll make a strain. And that's one other thing I noticed too, sort of kind of on your topic, but a little bit off here. But I noticed that the feedback was so slow, right, for the consumers. So the LPs didn't have a way to communicate well with the consumer or understand, right? So when you use the app, it's going to give live feedback. So for example, I would notice companies would put something into the market, right, and they keep growing more of it, and because it would sell out right away. And that's kind of the thing with cannabis; it will sell out fast generally
Sure.
um, in the market because yeah, it's like, oh, it's new. Oh, what's this Devin Kush or whatever, right? Or Jason Kush, and all of a sudden they're like smoke it all. I'm like, oh, this Devin Kush sucks. Fuck this. Like I don't want this crap, right? But the LPs are like, oh, it's selling out, so they're making more, and they're spinning their wheels a bit, losing money or losing market share off it, and that's where the app will come in for the LPs as well, where we can give them instant feedback. Like again, getting into data. I don't know. We
Mhm.
might have gone to this question later, but yeah, getting into the data and collecting that always is live to know what your consumers like in an area and be able to focus on your sales. So again, a little off topic, but
No, it's perfect. I mean, we always have assumptions going into a campaign, going into business growth, but we need the data to show us what's working. So to be able to go
yeah,
back to the LPs, not the limited partners, but the licensed producers,
licensed producers.
being able to go back to the bud tenders, show them exactly what everything's configuring towards. Going back to advertising, it's all about the data. Being able to reach the right audience at the right time. Maybe this city, this zip code, this region, midweek, afternoons, we're getting the best performance. I mean, really being able to hone in what you're doing, the data is the make or break in terms of what's going to actually work. How are you guys structuring the data? How are you guys using the data? How valuable are these findings?
Yeah, I believe they're gonna be really valuable. Again, obviously, I touched a little bit early on this question, but yeah, I mean, even for the stores, understanding what is selling in your area. Maybe you don't have a brand, right? So the store will be able to see live. We've got a plan for again premium features as well, and having stores minimal fee, obviously, to come in and basically get some of the data back. Where it's like, they look in their area. Well, again, A Kush is selling the best in their area by B brand or whatever the name is.
Sure.
And you could be like, oh, I've never even heard of this, but everybody's buying it in this area. Well, I need to get it in too, so I can compete with my individual stores in my area. Like, I'm from a town of like 80,000, not too big, but not too far from the big city.
Okay.
And we have like 7 stores. So it's interesting to see uh, why people go to certain stores, and a lot of it is for brands and things like that. So again, we'll be able to collect that data, get it back to the store owners, and then again the licensed producers. Yeah, definitely like knowing if their brand or strain is actually hitting in the marketplace early. Like, and again, you can imagine a company that has a large facility, you know, definitely not wasting any time growing something that's not going to sell is a positive thing. So that's kind of the data we're going to collect and be able to bring back to the market. Age ranges as well too, because we're going to have eventually we got a little plan for these avatars and to make people get a personality on the app. So when you follow them, things like that too, where they'll have to make a little smoke room. It's a kind of a long process, but we're getting there. We're about to have like posters on your wall or branded T-shirts from your favorite clothing brand or LP or store or whatever, and you could do a little bit of kind of advertising, which is easier in the States than in Canada. Again, differences there, but
Right.
definitely the data, things like that, knowing age groups, what they're focusing on, what type of people are smoking, when they're smoking. Like up right now in Canada too, there's I don't know if it's in the States so much, but we have milled product is really popular right now. And basically, what that is, it's just the buds that are pre-ground up. So you can just kind of reach in your, like, kind of like tobacco, like loose tobacco.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like the same where you can just take it out and put it either in your joint, roll it right away without grinding, or put it in your bong or
Mm.
whatever. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's so popular in the States,
Shake.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
Mm.
it definitely is popular in Canada. So just knowing what the users are liking, vapes versus flour versus again the milled product versus edibles, knowing more of a balance what your product is. And in most markets, it's very slow to get back that data. So the thing I like best about this is it'll be able to pop off really quickly, and basically as soon as you do the rating, boom, it's instant. And even on the app, it has a like a social media feed too, so you're about to see other people's ratings live and kind of like a Facebook, Instagram feel as well too. So we've got that part in there for people to keep entertained and watch what's going on quickly in the market in
Hmm.
an isolated environment.
User generated content, social sharing.
Yeah.
This data, what type of strategic partnerships is it attracting? I mean, we've talked about bud tenders, we've talked about the LPs, you're even talking about merchandise and different clothing brands, apparel. But I imagine there's so many different ways to skin it, to grind it up in terms of who can make value of the data.
Yeah, I mean, we're focusing on basically stores first
Cool.
because the key is one of the things is you got to get users and the stores, right? Because once you get the users,
Mhm.
then the stores come and then the licensed producers go. I mean, obviously I've talked to quite a few of them that who know what's going on, but we are a little bit in the early stages to talk to them yet because again, the users are the value. So we're ready to launch and all that, but pretty quick. But yeah, we got to focus on bud tenders, stores, consumers, then LPs, and kind of go from there.
And like you said, 7 stores in a town of 80,000, all of Canada at this point, each market you're opening up. I mean, it's high volume and the demand's only going to increase from here.
Yeah, I think I loaded 5,000 stores in the app myself.
Wow.
I told the tech guy, I'm like, he's like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, I don't care. I'll do whatever. Just tell me, like, show me how to do it. I'm pretty decent with computers, obviously. Like, just show me. He's like, oh, you actually are pretty good. I'm like, yeah. I sat there for like a week, just after work too, because I do have a normal job as well, and just sat there, just click, 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 loading stores. It was pretty insane, but I'm doing California and all the states right now too, so it's there's a lot of them. Let's put it that way.
Shows the passion. You're probably thinking, hey,
Yeah.
I know
Oh
some of
yeah.
these
Yeah.
guys. I want to know what's going on in each different area. And even just glancing at it for a minute, you find yourself a weekend and you've got thousands of stores in there.
Well, and it's like anything for me. I mean, I've always been successful by like I don't care how we get it done. And like even when I went to the let's call it the legal world, they're like, "Oh, you've been coming like 7 days a week." And in the beginning it was important. I don't go 7 days a week now, but I was like, dude, like we had to get up on Christmas Day at 2 in the morning if the power went out and go run the heaters. Like there's no days off. Like you can't with weed, you can't be like, oh, tell the plant just wait. We'll be back Monday. Don't grow any. Like it doesn't work that way, right? So yeah, so I've always had drive to get stuff done, and yeah, I don't mind. I'll do anything, and it's always good to learn, right? So
Most proactive founders have the most successful companies. You look at the success rates of startups, not always high, but the leaders who are, like you said, not taking a day off, and just fully at it. Um, how do you come up with the names for these strains? By the way, I know you're showing me some of the
huh.
paintings behind you. Said they're all based off strains you named. I think back to being a kid watching Cheech and Chong movies and Maui Wowie and Tide Sticks, Tie Sticks, and then Purple Haze, Northern Lights. Like, how do you know, like, hey, OG Kush, this is what we're calling it?
Well, at the end of the day, I don't usually get to name them too often because I was going for funnier names. Like I tried to call one the Reach Around, and Mark is like, "We can't call it that." I'm like, "What do you mean? That's when the weed's so good you grab it out of the other guy's bag." I'm like, "What are you talking about, you perverts?" Right? And they didn't like that so much. But usually you kind of take the two parents in general and try to make some name out of it, right? If you take OG Kush and like cereal milk, OG milk or something like that is a general way of doing it. Again, I wish I could name the strains, but sometimes, yeah, they usually don't let me. But but whatever.
Well, you've been very successful at this, Devin. It says a lot hearing about the size, the magnitude of some of the grows, the strains, what you guys are doing on the tech side, how many shops are involved. What recommendations would you have for founders who are tuned in? Maybe they're in the cannabis space, they're starting up their own store, their own operation. What should they test out towards their own growth?
Like in cannabis in general, or are you talking just in
Sure.
general, general?
Yeah. Let's
I
keep
mean,
focused on the
I would
cannabis
say,
vertical. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, maybe I'll go into my story about Lauren, but definitely just go for it. It doesn't hurt to try, if even if you fail, and yeah, I've had a lot of grow ups in my day, not always work out the greatest. But it's about putting yourself out there, and you know what, like even with Lauren, I guess I'll go to that story
Yeah.
because it'll make this make more sense. But you know, uh, when you get an opportunity, take it. Like Lauren, the one thing he loves about me too is every time he calls me for anything, he goes, Devin, there's this thing, this guy you got to meet. Can you get on a plane? And I'm like, yep, I'm on the plane. So get on a plane. I'm flying wherever he wants me to go, and we go and meet people. And making contacts is key, and just being honest and true to yourself, and never giving up is key. Because again, how I met Lauren and how I went to the legal world, which is pretty interesting. I flew to Toronto back in 2016 and to 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that, to a thing called Cannabis, and this guy Jeremy flew me out there, and I didn't even have a bank account. So he paid for my ticket and everything. And I flew out there, and he's like, you gotta come with me and meet come to this event. You're one of the best I know. You're the best I know. You're one of the best I know. I'm like, okay, fine, I'm coming. So I show up there on a red eye. Never been to Toronto. I was in like a blue hoodie, army pants, blue shoes, backpack on, looking like a bum. And he's like, I'm like, just where's my hotel room? Because I didn't have a credit card, so it's all on him. And he's like, no, you got to come to this meeting. I'm like, oh my God. So I go up and there's all these suits. And next thing you know, he's like, we're with this lawyer, and this lawyer's like, you got to meet that guy. And this guy, Lauren Gertner, I didn't know his name at the time, but he's going down this like double escalator out to the front. We chase him out there, and we were rolling his cigarettes in oil that we had, like
Huh.
loose oil on the lid of the jar. And we're like rolling it, and then he's smoking these oil joint cigarettes, and I'm like I'm blown away because I was like kind of had my head in the sand a little bit about legalization. Anyways, so then fast forward, he liked me right away. He's like, "You're coming to dinner with us tonight," and I'm like, "What? All right." So I'm at the dinner with these diamond investors guys, Steve D'Angelo from the U.S. He's a big cannabis guy too, and all these, yeah. And I'm like, this is insane. So I kept friends with him, and you know what? Over the years, I helped them, evaluate LPs here and there, licensed producers. That they were well looking to buy. Lauren, who's the founder, and again, he's basically like my dad nowadays, but he did the deal for Tokyo Smoke. He sold his brand to Canopy Growth for Corona beer or whatever is their backer for $250 million,
Wow.
right? So he knows how to build a brand, and again, I mean, obviously, I get a lot of help from them, so I can't say to the entrepreneurs out there listening. I mean, you can't always do it all on your own, but he definitely is a big part of my success so far, and just even coaching me, right, and teaching me a lot of stuff that I had no idea about. I've been to Toronto 3 times in the last like month and a bit for different events, and I did a panel he came to and supported me at Music Week in
Hmm.
Toronto. It was they changed the name from Music Week to Departure, and like Shaggy was there, and Celine Dion, and Brian Adams, and a bunch of different things. It was kind of weird, but it was fun. But you know what? Even that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go do the panel and get back on the horse. I've done panels before, but I've done one in a while, and just again getting yourself out there, believing, and just pushing through anything really. And it's not always easy, I'll tell you that. And I probably got a few more gray hairs than I did when I started, but you know. But
Don't we
yeah, and then
all?
again, I might have said this, but yeah, then Lauren called me one day, and I was like, you know what? This is an idea I had for a while, Lauren. We're doing an app, and he said, hell yeah, let's go. So,
It's all about that relationship building. Like you said, hop on a plane, no questions asked. Hey, I don't need to stop by my room. That's who we need to talk to. Let's
well,
do it.
well, that's how I ended up in Lesotho. I was in Joburg, looking at grow ops and out in Durban, and then all of a sudden, Lauren's like, "Are you in Africa?" I'm like, "Yeah, I told you I was going to Africa." He's like, "Okay, hold on, I'll call you back." So he goes, "You want to go to Lesotho?" And I'm like, "Sure." Canceled my flight, ate my
Of
ticket
course.
because I couldn't get my money back. But I'm like, "I'm going to Lesotho." And that was one of the coolest things I've done in a way. It was nuts. It was insane going to that country.
I haven't even heard of Lesotho. I don't know too much about it. I mean,
Oh,
it must be an emerging market.
well, no, it's one of the poorest, probably third poorest country in the world. And not I'll sum it up quick, but yeah, they're still plowing with horses out there. They live in grass huts and rock buildings. It's Google it. It's high up in the mountains in the middle of South, well, not the middle of South Africa, but landlocked by South Africa. And it was it
Right.
was it was definitely an interesting
I
place.
know where you're talking about now.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
horses,
cool.
and you're out there setting up,
Oh yeah,
sophisticated, state of the art,
yeah,
operations.
yeah, yeah.
What about optimization? A lot of content out there, YouTube videos, they just talk about how easy things are and how great it is and do this and you'll succeed. But as an entrepreneur, you hit walls. You have to get creative. You have to figure out how to overcome different obstacles. What are the best approaches towards pivoting, towards managing to a point of effectiveness?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I'm not perfect either. I don't think I'm not done running into walls, I'll tell you that. But yeah, you know what? It's recognizing them early would be my best answer there, and not being too
Yeah.
proud of understanding where you might be running into a hole. And it's funny, like even at my work, my boss, he kind of gets we've been together for 8 years, and I've been there since day one, right? But and we're buds, but it's funny. Even he goes to me, he's like, Devin always thinks of the problem, right? But always have a solution, or at least figure out a solution. But meaning, if you can see ahead a little bit and you think into the future, and you're like, okay, like we were doing something with a ERP system, and I'm like, yeah, but if we
Yep.
do that, people can delete this, and you just even little things like that, and not being um, too proud to listen to other people's advice, whether you take it for sure or not, using maybe even a piece of it, even if they tell you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're like, huh, I like D. Like the rest aren't really going to flow with it, I don't think. But you know what? That D is pretty interesting, right? That step that you just talked about and working it into your system. Because again, yeah, I mean, has this been as smooth as pavement or whatever? I don't know, smooth as ice or whatever you want to call it. No, nothing ever is. So it's about just understanding and again pivoting before you get in too much trouble, I think is key. And again, I'm not done learning either. There's a lot more for me to go, and that's another thing. Being maybe a bit humble. Hopefully, I'm coming off like that, but yeah, being humble is key, and again, respecting other people around you and putting the right people around you as well too is actually another thing. Like the guy Tom who introduced us, I mean, heck, I'm not the most educated on raising money and all the different Reg CFs and Andy's Capital and portals and investing portal. No, that's not my strong point. So definitely like guy like Tom Rack who's helped me out a lot. That's kind of his thing. And obviously people ask me questions on that. I'll do my best to answer. But I said, hey, look, if you want the for sure answer, we'll just call Tom and we'll make sure I didn't fuck that. Oh, screw that up. Tom told me not to swear too much, but screw that up, and then go from there. And then from there, definitely marketing people, branding. Like obviously I've got my ideas, but sometimes too, like the tech guy earlier was asking me about a screen, and I said, like, oh, do we want to do this one? I found this, and I said, well, you know what? Call Margot, right? I don't mind it, but let's call Margot, our branding lady, and just say, hey, what do you think of this? So yeah, I guess the roundabout way, my answer is just put people around you and listen to ideas, be humble, and try to look ahead and try to avoid mistakes if possible, or at least minimize them early.
Yeah. But like you said, they're going to happen. You're never going to be finished with the obstacles. You got to recognize them early, have the right people around you, know what you don't know, which I think is a humble statement, by the way. If I
Yeah.
talk to best golfer, they're going to tell you how they're actually not that good because they know how much better you can be. So even knowing, hey, there's still more things that are going to come up. This is still going to happen. I'm good here, but I really, couldn't do it without these guys and without Tom, without Lauren. It, again, it shows that you're always looking to get better, always looking to improve, and the realism behind it. Uh, when you have it all done, when you feel like you're at a good spot, how have you seen success in the past scaling? Let's say it's a grow operation, and hey, we need to get up to millions of acres, 100,000, 10,000 is not going to work. Whether it's the software, and hey, we're at this point now, we're taking the app to these levels. What have been the secrets to scaling? So we're all playing for, right?
Oof. Yeah. Oof. I guess I'll use my underground analogy here a bit more than the app because we're just working on the scaling right now. So, but it's like anything. It's like you got to see what your market is. So, for example, we did clones, like I mentioned. Well, all right, you do a small one. You've got 10 lights, whatever, right? We'll go by how many 1,000 watt light bulbs you have, and then you're sold out. And you got more orders, right? So okay, so now you think, okay, well, I got to get a bigger shop.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to 20 bulbs, then you're at 40, next thing you're at 100, and then you're at 300. So it's all about just seeing the opportunity and maybe not getting too big too quick in some cases that you overshoot because obviously if you go straight to 1,000 lights in that case and you don't have the sales, you're just throwing stuff in the garbage. You're paying all that labor and all that you know cost has to come from yeah all that cost for the labor and everything and the materials has to come from somewhere and it's your pocket. So that's where definitely watching your budget, understanding like even with US and Canada, which we're going to the US is like right away as well. Canada's a little bit more of our sandbox because again it's more familiar to me and it is federally legal, so it's it has its challenges as well too. But yeah, scaling from if we're gonna start off at 100 stores, right? And then Lauren again, and my ex CEO is a part of the cannabis thing, so we have a lot of connections that way in Canada. So we're gonna start the sandbox launch there, and it's understanding like how many stores you can reach and making sure you can I mean I'm not worried satisfy, but fulfill all their needs. Like you don't want to over promise and underproduce, and that's a big thing as well too. Is your credibility as a person and a credibility as a business. If that makes sense and answers that question.
Under promise, over deliver, be conservative, understand your
Yeah,
market size, what the growth potential actually is, scale in the appropriate increments, but respect the time
yeah,
while doing so that you're doing it fast enough, taking on enough market share, and keeping a good brand, keeping a good name all the way through. That's potentially the most
yeah,
important part.
yeah. Exactly. You don't want to be known as a bad guy or a crook or doing bad things. So that's never been my goal. I've always been proud of everything I've done, and every time I've taken on something, it's worked out. So it's the plan now.
There you
Keep
go.
pushing.
Says a lot about it, as well as your relationships. Uh, Devin, this has been a privilege for me. I don't get to speak with people who are so influential in the cannabis industry very often. Getting a feel for the gray market days and how things have evolved, traveling in this storyline to Africa with you and Europe and all over. I'm excited on where things are going. And as a tech guy, what you guys are doing with the app and on the data side of things. So very much appreciate the time. Any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with, and where are the best places for them to go to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, to learn more, we were on Instagram. We've got a portal out there at HiNote .ai as well. And basically, what else am I missing there? I think that's probably your best two right now as we launch. And I mean, final thoughts. I mean, honestly, just be you, do your own thing, and for all the entrepreneurs out there. And again, not everything I've tried has been successful, but it's stick to it. If you believe in something, just keep doing it. And yeah, put the right people around you. Keep your ears open when you meet somebody who might know more than you, and you sit there and you're like, and I hate the word take advantage, but take advantage of everything you hear. And if you hear somebody who can help you, you know, do it in the proper way, but take advantage of what they can offer you, how you can help them in return, and that'll help you be more successful in what you're going to do. And that's how I kind of always lived my life. And like I said, even with this, with the app, it's kind of funny. I actually sort of thought of it before I even knew Vivino existed, which is weird.
Hmm?
And I was kind of like, oh, we need this raid thing and scanner and all of that. And then somebody's like, oh, you're building a Vivino app for cannabis. I'm like, yeah, I guess I am. I downloaded it. I'm like, oh shit, I guess I am. So yeah, I mean, it's funny that I thought of it sort of even before, but yeah, so obviously there's something there, and we're gonna do it for weed and pair it with food and all that fun stuff. We got a crazy plan. I mean, everything takes time and money, but yeah, just whatever you got to do, you got to get people around you that can support you and yeah, and help you move forward in life.
Well said. Keep those people around you. Keep your ears to the ground, pairing with
Yep.
food, listening to the LPs, listening to the bud tellers, the stores. Suddenly, you're able to get the market what it's looking for, and it sounds like you're enjoying the ride along the way.
Well, and one more comment, you're right, because even being in the legal cannabis industry, trust me, I'd go to the meetings with the marketing people, and I'd be like, huh, you guys are missing what? Oh, you're missing that? Oh, okay. This is, and that also pulled the whole idea uh, in the end, right? So, anyways,
Yeah. Well, no one understands the product better than the founders, right? So being able to
yeah,
have that live in the marketing, it's true. People miss details, and that could be the real value point that pulls in the audience.
yeah.
Well, awesome, Devin. Thanks again.
Okay.
Really appreciate it. Enjoyed the time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in as well. We'll see you next time. And definitely take
Yeah,
Devin up on that. Start following on Instagram. Check out their campaign on Andy's Capital. Keep the conversation going with Devin and the team at HiNote.
yeah. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun as hell.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. See you
Thanks,
later,
everyone.
man.